One of the leadership thinkers of the modern era, Marcus Buckingham, wrote an amazing book called The One Thing You Need to Know. And he maintains that in every area of life, there's actually one pivotal thing that you need to know, that without it, you cannot succeed. So I'd like to suggest, what is the one crucial thing one has to know to succeed in leadership, in any area of leadership in life? And I believe the answer is as follows, as we see from this week's Parsha and last week's Parsha. It's one word. It's called responsibility. Or in two words, taking responsibility. Nobody can lead anyone, not themselves or not anybody else, without taking personal responsibility for their own life or for the lives of other people. And we see this through one powerful word in this week's Parsha and the very same word mentioned in last week's Parsha. Yehuda has a very difficult task of having to convince his father Jacob, Yakov, to release his beloved son Benjamin after having already lost Joseph, to release Benjamin and take him back to the viceroy of Egypt. And Reuven cannot convince him to do so. And how does Yehuda convince him? And it's exactly the same way that he has to now, in this week's Parsha, convince Joseph, the viceroy who he doesn't know as Joseph, to release Benjamin once again and release him to send him back to his father. And what does he do? He says to his father Yakov, he says, unlike Reuven, who tried to convince his father but did not manage to in last week's Parsha, Yehuda says, Abba, I take personal responsibility for this son. What is the word? He says, Anochi ervenu, I am responsible for him. In fact, if I don't do it, v'chatati lecha kol hayamim, I've sinned to you my entire life. Rashi says not only in this world, but even in the next. I'm personally responsible for the rest of my life, forever, eternally to you, if I do not return this boy to you. That convinced Yakov. He took personal, absolute responsibility to return his beloved son Benjamin. And exactly the same thing in this week's Parashat Vayigash does Yehuda say to Yosef, who refuses to release Benjamin. And what does Yehuda say? He says, Mr. Viceroy of Egypt, he says, Avdcha arav tanar, your servant has taken personal responsibility to his father, to my father, to return this boy. I will sit in jail for the rest of my life, taking personal responsibility, but I have to return this boy to his father. That convinces Yosef of the tshuva of the brothers, and hence he reveals himself to his brothers. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what leadership is about. The same word, arvut, a guarantor. I am personally responsible for the lives of others. We so often spend time blaming other people, holding them responsible for what happens to us. And we ourselves are blameless. We ourselves are justified. Rather, we should spend more time justifying other people and rather taking personal responsibility for the course of our lives and the lives of others. May each and every one of us, in every area of life and in every endeavor that we face in our personal collective lives, know and internalize that to lead and to succeed in any endeavor which requires leadership in life, it is about taking personal responsibility. And when we see ourselves as responsibility, leadership is born and success, Bezrat Hashem, ensues. Shabbat Shalom.